Hey, so I really didn't want to make this video this way, but I got so many requests to do it that I guess I got to go ahead and do it. So what I'm talking about is my Signature Series rods. So all along the design process of making my Signature Series rods, I gotta let you guys know about it from the start. I didn't wait until I had them all perfected, had everything just the way I wanted it. I didn't wait till I had the weights right and the actions and powers of the rod right to say, hey, here's the perfect blat Signature Series rod. I didn't do it that way. The moment that I got a prototype, I kind of brought it along, showed you what it looked like, fished with them in some tournaments, tell you what I liked and didn't like about them. But now that the rod is out, I noticed that everybody's asking, what are the rods for? What are the applications for? What? And I was like, well, dude, I've kind of been doing that for like 12 months now. So here's your all-in-one, all-encompassing, all-inclusive meals, rides. Like when you go to a theme park and you get a ticket for everything. That's this. That's going to be your video right here. Now, here's the problem. I don't have my boat and truck here with me, so I'm not able to actually show you the rods. So this is just going to be just a straight up telling you what these three rods are about. So I have 3 Signature Series rods. All 3 rods are in the favorite 6-stick lineup. Okay? If you don't know that, now you know that. They're all 3 in the Signature Series. My Signature Series is in the 6-sticks lineup. All right. There's 2 graphite composite rods that are bait casters. Okay. I designed the 2 bait casters for reaction style baits. I felt like in our lineup at Favorite, we didn't have the perfect cranking rod. Shallow cranking for throwing shallow balsa wood plugs, for throwing like a square bill crankbait, a 1.5 of whatever manufacturer you like to throw, for throwing like a shad wrap. We just didn't have what I thought was right for that. And so the moment that I got asked to design a rod, that's the first thing that popped up in my mind was graphite composite 6'8" to 6'10" rod. So what I ended up settling on after trying a couple rods was a 6'10" graphite composite in the 6-stick series. Okay. Now, when we first started that rod, the first prototype I got, it was okay. I mean, it was fine. It was okay. It just wasn't perfect. Wasn't perfect. We started off with a 6'10" medium heavy, and with graphite composite, to get to a medium heavy, like anything that has glass, graphite composite means it's glass and graphite. So a glass rod, the blank is a little thicker, and on that first one, the medium heavy, it just made the handle a little too big because the blank was so big. So when I got down to the handle of the rod, it just felt big, bulky, and it was just not comfortable to fish with all day. A lot of times when I put a balsa plug in my hand, it's locked in my hands all day. So you know what you're dealing with extremely quickly. I didn't really, that was one thing I knew we had to get right. Second thing is it was still a little stiff. It's a little stiff for like, that's for 2 reasons I didn't like it being too stiff. One is you couldn't cast really light plugs. Balsa, flat size, a balsa plug, it's a pain in the butt to throw. Everybody knows that. That's why a lot of times you see knockoffs of balsa plugs made in injected molding products, because then they can weight the bait right and put rattles in it, make it throw better. We put a weight transfer. Balsa plugs typically don't have a weight transfer, so they're a pain in the butt to throw. But you can throw them if you got the right rod set up. The one that I designed is going to help you tremendously. So that first one was a little stiff. Other thing is I just didn't like the feedback when pulling the plug back with that with the medium heavy. What I mean by feedback, like it was just stiff, and then it was just really hard to tell what the plug was doing down there vibrating. If you throw crankbaits a lot, you understand what I'm talking about. This probably sounds like gibberish. I know in my mind what I'm trying to say, but I don't know how to verbalize it to you. but it was just a little stiff. When you use the right power and right action rod with a crankbait, you get this feedback in the tip when the plug is working. I don't know. It just feels right. Okay, like it just bounces back right, and you know what the plug is doing. You know when it's got grass on it, you know when it's digging in mud, you know when it's coming across a rock. You almost can even feel when the fish is like swimming behind it when it's right, when the rod is right. Okay, and when we went from a medium heavy to a medium power rod, it was right. It did two things. Feedback was perfect then. I could just really see the rod tip dance. I could watch the rod tip and tell what my plug was doing. I could throw the plug a lot better. Second thing it narrowed the circumference of the rod blank. So the rod just, it fit my hands perfectly. Narrowing down the circumference of the rod blank really just opened up a whole different world with the rod. It just felt better in your hand. Like throwing, I'm telling you, when you're throwing a balsa plug or you're shallow cranking, a lot of times that's something you're gonna lock in your hands for the whole day. And so hand fatigue is something that you have to avoid. So it's gotta feel right in your hands. Like it's gotta fit around your reel's gotta be right, that reel handles has gotta be right, or else you get hand fatigue and then you wanna put it down. And a lot of times, especially in the fall, early fall, late summer, when I'm throwing a plug, like there's something locking your hand all day because you're only gonna get 5, 6, 7 bites a day. So you can't afford to like wanna put it down if your hand, because your hands fatigued. What happened a lot of time, you hear that country coming out, fatigue, since your hands are fatigued. A lot of times what'll happen, your hands get tired, you won't put the plug down. You wanna start dragging something, and if you've got the right setup, it makes you wanna fish it a lot longer. So doing that, we got the feedback right, we got the handle size right, we got the power of the rod right. I could throw the plug. It just opened up, the rod just like, it just came together. Second thing is we changed the handle on the reel seat on the rod, on the 610. So at first, the first prototype had these double trigger handles like all the rest of the 6-sticks. If you look at the 6-stick, it's got like a little grip. I might have one in my shop. Let's walk in the shop. I got one in my shop. It may not be a 6-stick. I don't have any of my boats, not here at home or anything, so I don't have any of my rods here. But it has this like double trigger handle. It doesn't feel good. If your fingers are too big or if your fingers are too small, make sure there's no snake in here. When I got snakes in my shop sometimes. So when I walk in, I'm just like waiting for the day that like an 8-foot-long black snake is just sitting here at the thing. Let me find one. So this is the original 6-stick right here. All the 6-stick series have this handle like what I'm about to show you right here. You see that? See this little double, this thing where you got to place your finger here, place your finger there. Well, that's great if your fingers are that size. My hands are kind of chunky. So sometimes with a reel that can be like, it can be, especially like with a wedding ring, like this can be a little annoying to me. This little this little area right here. So I wanted a reel seat that didn't have this. And so I think I do have one. I do have one of the cranking rods here. This is like the 3rd generation cranking rod. You see the difference? See that right there? See this little section? I like this. You see where my wedding band like beats on it and stuff? Right there. I like that. See, my wedding band hits this. So this handle right here, when we put that handle right there on the cranking rod, bro, like it came alive. Like this rod like really kind of turned into what I wanted. Then let me say, can I set you down? I know this is not a cinematic, one of the really cool cinematic videos. This is me walking around with a cell phone. So we did that. Other thing that I wanted to have on these rods, you know, something I think is underrated when it comes to fishing rods is the keepers. We just gloss over keepers like anything. Nothing makes me more mad than having my rods in a mess in my rod locker because the keepers don't function right and they got crankbaits and drop shots all trying to make love with each other. That crap pisses me off. It wastes my time. I ain't got time for that. So I wanted a really, really good keeper for crankbaits, jerkbaits, whatever you decide to throw. Now, I designed this for small crankbaits. It's really the only thing I think it does good. It's very technique specific rod. It's for crankbaits. I mean, really. So you see that, I'll try to get it to focus on. You see that keeper there? You can stick a hook in it right there. I love this style keeper. It's down here away. This is on the, like on the butt of the rod down here. But you see that keeper right there? Let get into focus. Come on, Sony, get into focus. There you go. That keeper right there, it's worked perfect. Keeps the bait down and away from all the other rods and line and everything. So far, I have no problems with it. So I think that about covers the 610. I guess I talked 15 minutes on just the 610 cranking rod. You can throw small crankbaits. I would say anything that is like a 6 foot or shallower diving crankbait. And it's especially for those lighter crankbaits, the 1.5s, the balsa plugs. I think you're really gonna like this rod to use those baits. You're gonna understand, once you put it in your hand, you're gonna understand what I mean by feedback and like all the things that I mentioned. It probably sounds like gibberish, but until you put it in, we went to a medium instead of the medium heavy in the first couple generations, and changed the handle type. I love it. I love it. Okay, right? All right, then. Now the other two rods I actually do not have here. They're in my boat, which is not here at home right now. Let's see. No, I don't have it. I don't have one of the other ones. So I designed 2 more rods. Can I go sit down? You mind if I go sit down? I designed 2 more rods. Now, let's talk about the spinning rod. The spinning rod that I designed was the spinning rod was also one that I was super passionate about. The reason the baitcaster, the graphite composite, I feel like is a little bit closer to my heart, because we actually have quite a few spinning rods at Favorite that are great. But I wanted one just a little more greater. All right, I wanted one a little bit more greater than what we had. There's a couple things that I really like. The 6-stick 7-1 spinning rod that we had. That's the only spinning rod in the 6-stick series is the 7-1 medium heavy. The comment I get every time I say my spinning rod is a 7-1 medium heavy, you're gonna use a medium heavy for finesse. Okay, one thing you gotta remember is those labels it's not a universal measurement of rod power across all manufacturers. What I'm trying to tell you is a Favorite medium heavy is not going to be another manufacturer's medium heavy. Our medium heavy is going to perform more like a medium in other manufacturers. So, I mean, I got exactly what I want in this rod. In the power, the action, the handles, the guides, everything that's important. The key, all the way down to the keeper, is exactly what I want. It's exactly what you've been seeing me use for a little over 12 months here. So that first rod that we designed, I took the blank that was already in production, just the blank. Just forget the eyes, forget the handle. We changed everything but the blank because I love that blank. That was the blank that I've used for 3 years. Ever since I've been at Favorite, ever since I started fishing the tour as a pro. So 5 years. And then that 6-stick series came out, and it's been my favorite rod since then. All right, so it hits a good price point at $120, I think it is, $119.99. All right, we took that blank. What I wanted to change was the handle. I grip my spinning rods up above the reel, okay? So I wanted a handle that elongated up above the reel handle, because that's where my hand is spending time. So I don't want it directly on the blank because it's not comfortable, it's slippery. I just don't like the way it feels. So I wanted some actual EVA foam above the reel. Secondly, you'll notice that on the original 6-stick, the rod actually buckles from the top. The reel seat screws down on the top of the reel, and fastens the reel to the rod. That works okay, but depending on what manufacturer reel you use, that moves the reel up and down the rod according to how big your reel seat is on your actual reel. Depending on how big your reel is, if you have a really, like if you're using a 3000 series, it's going to move your reel down on the reel seat. Using a 2000 series or 1500 series reel, it's going to move it up because you're fastening the reel seat down. But when you fasten your reel seat from the bottom up, it's always in the same place every single time. Okay, so it keeps the weight of your rod the same no matter what rod, no matter what reel, what size reel that you put on the rod. So that way you have the same feel in every single one of your rods. Okay, so I did that, changed the reel seat from buckling from the bottom. A high-end spinning rod will always have a reel seat that fastens from the bottom. Watch that next time, even if you're not buying my rod, just in general, remember that. A good spinning rod will always fasten from the bottom. All right, so I did that, changed the EVA to the top, reel seat now fastens from the bottom. I changed the guide configuration on the rod for 2 reasons. Remember how everybody's asking me, medium heavy for finesse? Is that really what you're gonna do? What are you gonna do? Okay, now, medium heavy blank, depending on how many guides are on your blank, determines exactly how much power your rod has. The more guides you put on, the stiffer that rod's gonna be. The less guides you put on, the less stiff the rod's gonna be. So, with that being said, I actually increased the size of the first 3 guides on that rod. Talk about why we did that later. And I also took away one guide. Taking away one guide just made that rod like, and you got 6-pound tests on and you got one lock up on it, it just kind of, you know, it just, yeah, a little more. It's not quite as stiff. So that's what I mean by like, it probably, and I probably, you know, what I probably should have did is just say, look, call it a medium because it's confusing people. But in our rod lineup, that rod blank is a medium heavy, but depending on how many guides you put on it with all the resin and stuff you put on the rod when you attach guides, it changes the power of the rod. Other thing we did with the guides is I made one bigger. The first 3 bigger, sorry, not more than one. I mean, it may have even been the first 4. Most of us now are using braid to floors carbon setups, right? So there's a union knot. I don't care what union knot you use. I don't care if you use FG. I don't care if you use Alberto. I don't care if you use all the Crestliner double G3 Yamaha Mercury knot. I don't care what you use. At the union knot, there's always going to be a bigger circumference. The fact of the matter is this. The larger the guide, the better the line is going to come through the reel. Now, we didn't go and double the size of the guides on the first 3, but the first 3, when it slides through, is going to come through the guides a little bit better because it's bigger. All right, your union knot's going to be bigger. The other thing we did, the reason I did that is because I use a lot of fluorocarbon setups, straight fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon, if you were to look at it, if you were to make a cast and look at it in slow motion, it's going to have a bigger coil when it leaves the rod than braid does. Braid is going to be, let's just say, if a braid coil when it leaves the rod and goes through the guides is a 1/2 inch wide, a fluorocarbon coil is going to be much wider. It's probably going to be 3/4 or 1 inch wide. It's bigger, so you need a bigger guide to let that line go through the reel guides and exit more properly. So I upsized the guides and took one out to kind of loosen it up a little bit, just kind of make that rod feel a little softer. So that's what we did with the guides. When we did those 3 things, as my son says, oh my God, that rod right there it's $120, I think, maybe $129. It feels like a $300 spinning rod. It's light. The blank was already light. We changed the grip on it, gave a high-end grip, got the guide configuration right. is a bad rod. Like, it is bad. What I use that rod for is everything. I use a spinning rod as pretty much everything. I've thrown jerk baits on it. I've thrown miniature swim baits on it, like 3-inch, 2-inch, 2.5-inch, 3-inch swim baits on it. I've thrown Ned rigs, drop shot, shake a head. If I throw a spinning rod, if I'm using a spinning rod, that's the one it's gonna be. I've caught redfish on it. I've even used that rod down the coast, catching redfish. I've done everything with that 7-1 medium heavy power favorite 6 stick. If you're not even into spinning rods and you're looking for one, that's the one. There's some situations, and maybe later on I'll get the liberty to design a little bit longer one for just certain little things. But if you just need one spinning rod, you're not really in it, and you use mostly bait casters, get that rod. You're gonna be happy. It'll do everything you need to do with that rod. But don't let the medium heavy power label confuse you. Labels are just that. I can put heavy on there. I can put medium light on there. It don't matter. There's no universal international rod guide of what rod power actually is. It's different for every manufacturer. So what a medium heavy power is in one manufacturer is different in another manufacturer. In my rod company, medium heavy power is what this rod is. You got to put it in your hand to understand what it is. It's not too stiff for any finesse application. It is rated for 6 to 12 pound test line. Handles that just perfectly. Okay, caught 15-pound redfish. I've caught stripers. I've caught walleye. I've caught smallmouth, largemouth, spotted bass, 7 foot, 1 inch, medium heavy, 6 stick. Improved version. Mine is just an improved version. I promise you, this rod, like, I say that about, like, all of them are my favorite. If I had to rate them, I would say the 610 graphite composite, first favorite. Second favorite would be the spinning rod. God, I feel bad saying that. Second favorite would be a spinning rod. Third would be this 7.2. Only reason the 7.2 is not higher ranked is because I don't use it quite as much in the rotation. I really fought with making a 7.2 for like the 7.2 graphite composite, which is my other bait caster. Let me just back up. I'm moving too fast. Let's start getting excited. This third rod is a 7.2 medium heavy graphite composite for chatterbaits, lipless crankbaits, and deeper diving crankbaits. Not deep, not like a DT20 or a DD22, not that. What this rod is for like a Spro rock crawler or for throwing DT10. 7.2 medium heavy graphite composite. It's a bad dude too. It's kind of a mirror of my 610, but a little more beefy. Okay. The reason that I don't rank that one as high as I do the 610 graphite composite and the spinning rod is because I just don't use those baits quite as much, but I felt like it was a rod that we needed. I really fought between making a spinnerbait rod and this graphite composite 7.2. If I get the liberty to design another rod, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like a spinnerbait rod. But we have other rods that I feel are pretty good for fishing a spinnerbait, but maybe I'll just tweak a few things on it to make it the perfect spinnerbait rod. Anyway, this 7.2 that I designed, graphite composite, technique specific to chatterbaits. You can still throw small crankbaits on it. It's just not going to throw the lighter ones as well. Lipless crankbaits, rattle traps, so forth. You can throw Spro rock crawlers, DT10s, Norman deep little end. Those 8 to 12 foot diving crankbaits, that's what I got that one for. A little longer, get the casting distance, handles a heavier bait wheel. So, you know, like a chatterbait is kind of, by the time you put a big trailer on it, and if you're throwing a 1/2 ounce, now you got a pretty heavy bait. That's what that rod is for. I felt like as much as I throw a chatterbait, as much as I throw a lipless, I probably should design a graphite composite for those applications. So that's what that rod is for, okay? So keep that in mind when you're shopping the blat series rods at favorite. I'm excited about them, man. Like, I really worked on these hard, and I think they kind of got sick of me nitpicking over these rods because I was really peculiar about the weights, what it felt like when it hit my hand. I think I went on the 610 through three generations of prototypes on the spinning rod, and maybe 4 on the 7.2. The 7.2 felt real heavy when we first got it. The first prototype, I put it in my hand, it was just like, what we did, this is crazy. Even though the rod felt heavy, this is how we fixed it. It felt heavy, but it wasn't heavy. It's just the way it was weighted out made the tip feel heavy, so the rod felt heavy. So what we did is I actually ended up adding weight to the butt of the rod. It lightened it up, balanced the weight, and so when you fill it up, it's like, this doesn't feel like a graphite composite. It feels more like a straight up graphite rod. That's what it felt like once you got the weight right. It felt really light. That's what I was shooting for, where you can use it all day. But these rods are all $129.99. I want to say, I may be wrong, maybe $119. I'm almost certain it's $129.99. Affordable rods that everybody can buy. Good quality rods. It's great for starter fishermen, and it's great if you're a serious competitor in tournaments. I hope you like them. I hope I answered all your questions about what to use these rods for, what I designed them for, and what exactly did we change that made it my signature rods. Okay? Appreciate it. Thanks to all of you. If you've already bought one of the signature rods, post a picture for me on social. I'd love to share it and just see what you're doing with them and how you like them. Just share your photos with me. I'd love to know what you guys think of the rods as well as too. All right, appreciate it. You guys have a good day.